Mhm. Your shoulder movement inspired
Uh,
me.
That's what you gotta do. You just gotta work it out.
yes.
Yes.
Well, ladies, I'm so happy that y'all are able to join Precise Communications for Culture and Convos. We have a really excited topic that we're going to talk about today, where we're highlighting you all as influencers and also get a better understanding of how brands should actually work and create with you all.
Mhm.
I know that we're seeing like a shift in the environment when it comes to influencer content and influencer networking. So culture and conversations, the ins and outs of influencers and brands, this is the best conversation and platform for us to really get down to the nitty gritty. So I'm going to let the room fill in. I'm really excited to see all the folks that are joining us today for this exciting conversation with Aisha and Bree, two of the most phenomenal influencers and creative influencers that I have seen, and I'm like fans of their actual work.
Oh, thank you. That was so
Yeah.
nice.
Very
Yeah.
nice. I appreciate that,
Of
Jasmine. Thank you.
course, it's Women's History Month. We got to do for the girls. I'm a girl's
Yes.
girl, so
Yes.
Love it.
you know. So
Yes.
we're celebrating us this month.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so as we are working through Women's History Month, I wanted to know, like, we're in a world where like it's nothing but women that are influencers, or we see a large amount of women that are influencers.
Mm-hmm.
One, how did you get into the role of influencing? Because Aisha, I know that you have a background in PR and
Yeah.
marketing, and Brie, you do as well. What caused that pivot for both of you? And I'll let Aisha go first, and then we'll have to Brie.
All right. Yeah. So I think for me, I absolutely loved being a publicist and working with so many different brands, ranging from well-established brands to up and coming. But I started to, well, first I decided to, but I started my blog because was getting a lot of questions while I was out on the street, like, tell
Mhm.
me about your makeup routine, tell me about your hair, your skincare, all that. And I could speak really well to these things. I was enthusiastic, really excited about sharing and helping other people, especially women. And that inspired me to create my own blog, to start posting on Instagram and sharing my tips, tricks, the things that I've learned along the way. And as I was doing this, I realized that I was feeling a little bit more joyful in this role of being my own boss,
Yeah.
building my own brand. And I realized that I no longer wanted to push and pitch someone else or something else. And I instead wanted to pitch myself moving forward. And that's essentially what I did. And I decided to step away and pursue my own career as a full-time creator and speaker.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, where did you have like and to that? Like, were you just like, nope, I'm all in it?
Can you ask that one more time? It cut out a little bit.
Sorry.
It's
I was
okay.
asking you making that transition, like was there any apprehension in doing that, or were you like, I'm all in, let's just go for it?
Oh my God, absolutely some apprehension because I my audience was nowhere the size that it is now. I didn't really have much of a strategy. I knew that I wanted to continue to share on my blog, to share on my social media platforms, and that I eventually wanted to see it go somewhere,
Mhm.
but I didn't have a plan yet.
Yeah.
I essentially found myself in a position where I was a little bit unhappy in my role as a publicist. And it came out more so as necessity for my own mental well-being to take this venture. And when I first stepped out on faith, I wasn't making any money. I didn't have brand deals at the time. I wasn't, seeing that consistent income. So it was absolutely terrifying. There was a lot of apprehension about that, but I think sometimes in order to see big change, you got to make big steps. And
Mm-hmm.
A word.
that's just something I had to do. And I think the beauty of it and going into it in this, like, with this hunger and knowing that I wouldn't make any money unless I produce some work, really helped me to learn and grow along the way. And I figured out how to use a camera. I figured out how to edit. I learned how to better communicate and with my audience and really tell stories and immerse them in my world. So it took some time, but it was very intimidating at first because I was one of those people who was not a viral sensation yet when I decided to jump out onto faith. So it really has been a started from the bottom type situation for me.
I love it. And now we're here. And
yes.
now,
And now we are here.
Bree, same question. How did you become a creator and how did you pivot from your day job into creating, or are you still creating stuff or working your day job?
So yes and no to still working my day job. My day job has just shifted a bit. I started creating in 2018 after graduating from my master's program. I went straight through from undergrad right into my grad program. And so all I knew was school. And I really just needed something to help me like measure success at that point, because I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Like I've been writing papers and everything for so long. I just need to figure out what is next for me. So I started my blog, and then in July of 2021, ended up quitting my job in social work unexpectedly, had no plans of being a full-time entrepreneur, and then started my social media management agency. So now I'm creating for other brands and businesses, and then also doing the content creator, influencer, full-time, part-time. I don't even know what to call it at this point, but yes.
It's good. That's awesome. So both of you talked about brands and touching on brand deals. And, Aisha, you said it best. Like you didn't come out the gate swinging when it came to brand deals and that money rolling in. But regarding that, how do you feel that brands can best leverage micro influencers or influencers that don't have a lot of following? I know that Precise, a lot of our clients, they love influencers with large numbers, and we've had to educate them on the difference between reach and virality and followers being a vanity metric. But when they are looking for influencers to work with, what do you think are the best practices that brands should utilize?
Yeah, I love that you touched on virality and
Same.
how that can kind of blind some brands at times. I think with the inception of TikTok and how people can become pretty much an overnight success in a matter of hours, it's created this kind of new normal that everyone should have 100,000 followers
Yes.
without actually, building that audience. And I think the important things that a brand needs to look for is that creator telling a story? Are they immersing their audience into their daily life, their daily routine, and how they utilize certain products and services? Are they replying to their audience members? Is their content diverse? Can you see yourself being placed on their page and fit into their lifestyle and their livelihood? I think that's extremely, extremely important, and the first place that you have to look rather than looking at the numbers. I also think quality of content is extremely important. We used to be like Instagram used to be extremely aesthetic back in the day, and everyone was like using their cameras and, shooting from really great angles. And I think that we've kind of like stepped away from that a little bit. But I always tell other influencers that it's really important to shoot with quality, whether it's your phone or your camera, because at the end of the day, we're essentially, I guess, like mini commercials. And if you want to best portray a brand, your content should at least be of the caliber of the type of content that brand would use for a commercial or for their own marketing. So I think quality over quantity, storytelling is extremely, extremely important. Engagement back with their audience is extremely important, because you can have a ton of followers and a ton of comments and not reply. And that at the end of the day is going to hinder whether or not you convert. So finding that out beforehand would behoove a brand, because working with someone who then you find out doesn't actually reply to comments, doesn't actually reply to DMs, it's not really going to help your bottom line when someone asks for that link.
Yeah.
Or ask for further information so that they can get it themselves. So I think looking at those details and also checking out their influencer resume and seeing if their influencer resume is what I consider to be past work that looks or I guess emulates the type of content that or the type of product or content that they're looking for. So if they haven't ever, if you are a vacuum brand and they've never shown anything in their home related to any type of home decor or lifestyle, do you actually want to work with them? Because they may execute and put together something really beautiful, but their audience is going to be thrown off because they've never seen anything like this before.
Exactly.
And yeah, so there should be something there already.
Yeah, no, I definitely love that you touched on the influencer resume. I was going to ask, like, what does that mean? But you defined it. So thank you. I think a lot of people get that confused of like, well, if I have the numbers, then, brands should come flocking to me. And you don't realize like you need a body of work, like a media kit or something that shows who you've worked with and what the things that you've done. So Bree, I know Aisha touched a wide range of things, but anything that you think that brands should do to connect with influencers?
Yeah, especially because right now I am under 10K. One of the things that I feel like brands should be looking for is someone who has no problem showing up as themselves authentically every day. I think a lot of times, I think over the years, influencing has become this like sell situation. And for me, what makes a great influencer, what makes me want to follow other influencers is their power to make others feel comfortable showing up authentically as themselves. Nobody wants to be constantly sold to. People want something that they can connect and relate to. And so I think brands should really pay attention to whether or not the creators that they are seeking out have that ability to really connect with their audience because they're being themselves and because their client, or not their clients, because their audience sees that they are trustworthy because they're being who they really are and not some commercialized version of themselves.
Yeah. I love how you both tackled that question of like, you talked about Aisha, the high quality and like how it's an extension and it is a mini commercial, but Bree, you're also saying that there's a fine balance. Like you should be your authentic self. You should be able to showcase, what you're doing on a day to day. So to touch on that authenticity, how can brands make sure or what do you think that brands should do to make sure that they're not being lost in an influencer's authentic self or the way that they're creating things, and that there's actual real alignment? So I think we've touched on it a little bit, but I would love to go a little bit deeper on that.
I think Aisha spoke to that with brands coming to your page, to a creator's page. Can you see your brand living on my feed? As you look at the content that I've posted, whether it's workout videos, whether it's a solo date night situation, I don't know, whatever it is, when you look at that content and when you hear my voice in that content, can you also hear my voice promoting your brand in the way that feels unique and authentic to me? So I think that's something that they should really pay attention to.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also taking a look at how creators have showcased other brands, ensuring, because I know a lot of times coming from both sides, I see both sides of the pendulum, because I know as a PR person, when you send someone a product and you pay them, you want to make sure that the product is the hero of the content. And you should take a look and make sure that they're really making the product or service the hero of their content beforehand. And I think these days it's starting to become where people are hiding disclosures, hiding ads a little bit more, because they're understanding that, there are certain powers that be that may not push their content if it is an ad. And that can sometimes be a disservice to the brand, because if it's my lovely smile at the front and then like this little thing behind me is your product and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can barely see it,
Yeah.
that isn't going to be as beneficial for you. So I think taking a look at how they've presented brands in the past is going to be really helpful, because if they're not really showcasing brands and products and tagging and actively mentioning these things already, it might be a little hard for them to start doing that and make that switch. I also think that it's super important to think about like what your brand messaging is and your brand values are when
Mhm.
you're approaching specific content creators, and understanding that it's a mutually beneficial partnership and this person has free will and they're going to express themselves in a different way. So
Mhm.
finding common ground in how that messaging is going to be articulated by that person is really, really important, instead of making so many requirements of like what you should say, how you should say it, where the product should be exactly.
Yeah.
That takes away from the creativity. It
Yeah.
takes away from the excitement of the campaign and the interest in actually putting it together. At that point, it really does become a job. It becomes a chore, and
Not
it
fun.
yes, and it comes
I
across
agree.
to your audience as if you're really forcing it
Right.
because you can't be yourself in that
Mhm.
moment. So I think giving, a top line rundown of like what the talking points are, and then allowing the person to express themselves in their own way is really important. I think it can be annoying and cumbersome, but asking beforehand, like what the direction is that you want to go in,
Mhm.
and like giving your creative like plan and vision
Mhm.
beforehand, so nobody is surprised, nobody is confused after the
Mhm.
content gets created, I think is super, super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that we definitely do at Precise. We make sure that we have these conversations with the influencers or any creators that we work with beforehand to make sure, okay, this is what the client wants, this is what we want, and this is what do you want? And how can
Mhm.
we like find a fine balance in between all of those things? And so one of the things that we've been really pushing and advocating for on influencer and creators' behalf is let them let them create. Like that's the whole point of you hiring them, is that you like what they've created. Let them do that and figure out what makes sense for them and their page and their followers to enjoy.
Mhm.
So speaking of creativity, like I said, I'm a fan of both of your pages and the things that y'all have put out. So I would love to know what the creative process is behind all the things that you're doing. You don't have to tell me everything. I know, you got secret sauce, but what a creative process that you go to, or something that's helped you tap into your creativity?
This year, I've really tried to do a better job of actually writing out the content that I want to create.
Mhm.
I think I've gotten caught up in just leaving everything in my head. And that has worked, but also it can be quite stressful.
Yeah.
So this year, I have prioritized just writing out a plan month to month for what content I want to create. I'm trying not to get stuck in, okay, I have to post this on a certain day. I have to post this on a certain day, unless it is specifically for a brand collaboration. And so that's been really helpful because it's placed the fun back into me creating. I recognize that this is a job and it's a job that I actually love, but it does take the fun out of it when I am allowing myself to be stressed rather than creative. So I've been enjoying writing out a plan for my content. And then the rest of my creative process is really just making sure that my room doesn't look a mess on the other side of the camera. So, yeah.
Right.
It looks good over here from what I can
Thank
see.
Yes,
It
you.
looks good.
yes,
It's
it looks
clean
great.
today. It's clean today. I made sure.
Bed is made, everything, yes.
Yes.
I think that helps with, like, if you have a crowded room or a dirty room, you have a crowded mind. So like
Yes.
that's a great thing to take away.
Yeah.
Aisha, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm a little more type A. So I'm like, schedule the days.
Mhm. Mhm.
But like that makes me happy and excited when I like, have everything pretty much laid out. But
Yeah.
That's
being
a
a
publicist in you too.
what'd you say?
I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's a publicist in you.
Yes. So being a lifestyle creator, every piece of my content essentially revolves around me my life, my day to
Mhm.
day, how my weeks are. So, one thing that's been really helpful for me in coming up with ideas is taking a look at like what I have on my calendar. What's going on that month?
Yep.
How am I feeling? You know, what have I been thinking about? What am I doing in my home? What changes am I making?
Mhm.
And essentially putting those things into my editorial calendar. This week I had 2 brand events. So I put those in my editorial calendar that I was going to do a get ready with me for one of them. I was going to do a recap for another. I also have gotten back to, I think, I've gotten back to making sure that I'm creating content for my audience and
Mhm.
not creating for other creators. And I think that
Mm.
definitely happened. It started to happen a little bit. I think as I got more brand deals and more opportunities, it started to become very like it got like really, really, I guess like regimented. And it was just like, okay, these are the trends. These are the, these are the
Yeah.
things, the points that I have to hit. And I've gotten back to essentially back to the basics of what I did when I first became a creator. And I'm just teaching people things. I'm like talking about things. I'm showing them how to put on their makeup step by step, taking my time, going through, various things. I'm talking about how I put together a wardrobe and giving people information and inspiration along the
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And that I feel lately has really helped to like reinvigorate me because it's helpful. It's less comments that are like, oh my God, you look so nice. I love that. And really cool to, wow, this really helped me. Oh my gosh, I
Yes.
learned something from this post. I'm saving this. And that I think is what being an influencer and a creator, whatever you'd like to call yourself,
Mhm.
is about. It's
Mhm.
really about serving your audience.
Mhm.
And to me, when it comes to like figuring out, how to be creative, I'm thinking of ways in which I can help and serve and show them these things. And you have to look at yourself as an expert in all areas.
Mhm.
I'm an expert in how I can, adorn my home. I'm an expert in making some really fire cocktails for when my friends come over.
Okay.
Mm.
Like,
I'm
but
making
you
notes.
Right.
So when I
I,
come over.
right. Yes. I got you, Jasmine. Like, I mean, obviously I'm not a bartender and
Right.
whatnot, but you have to think of yourself as an expert in these areas
Absolutely.
Yep.
and understand that your audience or your ideal audience is
Mhm.
not you. They
Yeah.
don't already know these things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're not already well versed in these things. So what can you bring to the table to help them along the way? So
Yeah.
that helps me to essentially think about like what exactly I'm going to be sharing and doing
Mhm.
that week. I also try not to plan too far in advance. So
Same.
the max is like a month because you want to keep and that's still pushing it. I feel like
Yes.
2 weeks is good. Like 2 weeks
Yeah.
is very, very good.
Yeah.
Because you want to stay timely. You don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. You don't know what changes are going to be made.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, the sun comes out and it's an 80-degree day. Like, what kind of content are you going to push out that day now or that week? Like, I got to switch my whole, strategy up. We're going to talk about things you can do outside, ways that you can help your mental health by going for a walk. Like we're going to pivot.
Yep.
So you have to be mindful about that. And then once I have those ideas, I put them together in an editorial calendar. And that just helps me to organize everything. It also helps me with the creation process because I know, like what I'm going to be shooting that day and what exactly I'm going to be editing. I like to separate shoot days from edit days and like writing days
Mhm.
because I've found that like if I wake up and I get to my desk and I start like writing and editing, I don't feel like getting up and putting on a face of makeup and going to take a photo after that. And vice versa.
Advice.
Yep.
Exactly.
After I'm shooting, I'm like brain dead. So I don't feel like
Yeah.
writing anything and editing after that.
Yeah.
So I really try to split it up that way.
That's something that I've been trying to find the balance too when it comes to managing social for clients. It's like, okay, you want me to write out the strategy, write out the treatment and shoot all in one day. You're gonna lose me. I'll be burnt out before
Yeah.
Yeah,
I even get to the next step. So I'm glad that
exactly.
I'm glad that you're type A and that you found something.
Mhm.
Now I'm taking notes like, okay, I can
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take some of those things. Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
doing this for a long time.
Yes.
and you're
I've
doing
had,
well,
You
obviously.
absolutely do.
Yeah.
it's all about trial and error. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love how you also touched on oh, I just lost my train of thought. You touched on, I lost it. I'll come back to it when I find it.
That's right.
But you touched on a lot of great things. Let's just say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we know that the current landscape of like brands and brand deals are changing. A lot of folks, they want to do UGC, or some folks want to be full on brand ambassadors. Where do you see the current landscape for brands and influencers shifting? If there's a way that things have been changing or not.
Okay. Brie, I'll let you go.
I feel like the shift that has been occurring from my perspective, you're seeing a lot of like faceless content coming up, and the girlies are doing more aesthetic content that doesn't feature themselves. And so for me, I don't personally want to see it shift that way. Because I think it's harder to connect with somebody's hands. I think it's harder to connect with just someone posting their coffee every day. Now, I will say there are some accounts that do that very well. There are some accounts that do faceless content very well, and you're still able to relate to whatever it is that they're posting. But if we're all going in the direction of faceless content and posting our coffee mugs and posting our hands doing whatever, and just posting like everything from the neck down interacting with the product, I'm not sure that the community first content that I like to prioritize is going to be effective anymore. And so the shift that I'm seeing happening is one that I would like to see reversed, because I genuinely just don't want to see a bunch of faceless content, right? I still want to be able to hear someone's voice, to see their reaction to a product or see their reaction to a situation that's going on in their life, right? So that is kind of my perspective on where I see it going and where I would like it to kind of drift back.
Okay. So I feel like you were like all in with the whole Risa Tisa stuff when her
child, yes. But I had to put it on I think I put it on 1.5 speed because I was like, it's the 10 minutes, baby. Hurry up. Come on.
Okay, so we know the type of content you're just like.
Yes. I like to Aisha's point earlier, she talked about connecting to a story that someone is telling. I think that's so important. Like I want to, it doesn't have to be a 50-part series now. No, I can't do too many more of those. But I do think that there is something to be said about someone being able to pull you in by telling us the story of their life in whatever way. Get Ready With Me tells somebody's story through what they're wearing. Like I can tell how someone feels that day by the clothes that they put on in their Get Ready With Me video. That is a story that I can connect to. And so I don't want us to lose that.
I understand. Before we shift to Aisha, de-influencing popped up in my head as you were talking about faceless content. Are you both familiar with de-influencing and how that's just taken over TikTok and, people's shopping habits?
I've heard of it. I'm not super familiar though.
Okay. Well, we'll table that. But for the audience, de-influencing is an act of influencers or creators having tried said product and then, providing their recommendation saying, oh, I would purchase this, or these are the things that I regret purchasing. I feel like I've seen a lot of that popping up where it's not forcing people to buy and really pushing the narrative of, okay, you don't need everything that you see on TikTok. Just because Aisha has it doesn't mean that Brie needs it or that Jasmine needs it either. So, so we won't talk about de-influencing too much. But Aisha, what are your thoughts regarding the landscape of influencers and brand deals?
Yeah, I think as it pertains to influencers and brand deals right now, I think we're shifting to long-term partnerships because that right now the consumer is extremely smart. The audience member has kind of caught on to the influencer, the influencer world and realm, and they're looking to influencers and creators who actually love, use, are immersed in that, or have that product immersed in their life, their livelihood, and they want to see it more than just one time, just one hashtag ad. They want to see things that are actually, they want to see that their favorite influencers are working with brands long term. I've definitely seen that feedback as well from my audience, that they like seeing me work with certain brands more than once, and they feel more connected, or they feel proud, or they're excited, like, oh, okay, she actually likes them, she's actually really feeling this product or this service. So I think there's a shift now to creating those long-term relationships, and I do also feel that brands are starting to somewhat, not all of them, but somewhat get privy to the fact that it's more about quality versus quantity.
Yes.
And not really think that the audience size is as important.
Mhm.
And I can definitely attest to that, being somebody who is technically considered a micro influencer, because I don't have 100K on Instagram,
which is insane.
Thank you. But I know I'm mad about it. But that's another conversation.
Instagram, your algorithm.
Yes. But I have been blessed to work with so many household brands, really big paid campaigns, and have been able to see a lot of lucrative and amazing brand deals as someone who has a micro audience. And I will say that that's a testament to brands understanding my value and understanding what I bring to the table. And so that's a trend I would like to see continue. It's not with every brand, it's not with every opportunity, but it is definitely something that I'm seeing, because also these big brands are realizing that even their pages, they have millions of followers and they're getting 30 likes, 20 views. And they're starting to see, okay,
maybe the numbers don't matter so much.
So I've had brands who understand this, like that I've worked with, and they know that now if they're like, let's do it, make sure that the partnership is a collab post, and then we're going to boost it, because we know that Instagram is finicky. So this is the best way to make sure that eyes are on your amazing content. And it's been something similar to that in my email. So I think that they're getting a better understanding, and also trying to do more long-term, multi-month partnerships, multi-activation partnerships.
Oh, I love that. You just went into my next question about like long-term plays with influencers and brand deals. One, curious on both ends, do you have any long-term brand deals that y'all been working on? And then the second question is, what is it that there's some must-haves for these brand deals to happen, so that they are long-standing versus just one-off content creations?
Yeah.
I don't currently have any long-term partnerships, so I'm gonna sit and be a student.
So I recently signed a long-term deal. I signed it, I guess, at the end of last month or the beginning of this month, with Shea Moisture. And Shea Moisture is, thank you. Shea Moisture is an amazing brand that I have worked with many times. Like throughout last year, we worked together on several different activations, and I was fortunate enough to sign a deal with them from this month through July. So I'll be pushing out a new launch of theirs over the course of the next few months, which I'm really excited about. And I think for a long-term deal to actually work, it has to organically fit into your life. So yes, long-term deals are important, but if it's something you can't see yourself talking about every month or every other week, it might not be one for you. And I do have an example. I signed a long-term deal like 2 years ago with a brand that does like sleep aids. And I love their product. I thought that, it actually was effective. It worked for me and my husband. They had products that helped you to fall asleep and to stay asleep. And I thought it was great. And I worked on a few campaigns for them for, I think it was like a month, or maybe like a month and a half or 2 months. And then I was like, okay. I was like, there's nothing else I can really say about this product. And at the beginning of the partnership, they said they would have new launches and more products and XYZ. And that never really came to fruition. And so I had to sit back with myself. And at the time, it was like one of my highest paying deals. And I had to think like, okay, how exactly am I going to push this sleep aid for another few months and make the story feel different, make it feel fresh. And I just couldn't at the time. I mean, maybe now I could think about it a little bit more and figure out some new ideas, but at the time I couldn't. And I had to tell them, hey, I think that I'm going to have to part ways with this partnership. Thank you so much. I can't, I don't really see myself being as creative as I need to be. And I can see my audience being really fatigued from this content after a while. So I had to bow out and had to say goodbye. You know that emoji, the money emoji with the wings? That was me.
The money was leaving.
Yes, I saw the money flying away, and Lord knows I needed it. But I was just like, I just can't in good faith keep pushing this product that like, I'm also very good with sleep hygiene. So like it was helpful for, a month or two, but like I'm not always in need of a sleep aid. So like it really just didn't fit. So when it comes to those long-term deals, you have to, or else you're going to end up looking like the Mary Kay lady. Like it's just like, hey guys,
listen,
just woke up and I'm doing my thing. Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. And it's like, again, so you got to make sure it fits. Like one thing I'm always going to do is wash my hair every week. And I'm always going to be styling my hair every week, and this is something that's going to be constant. I'm going to be trying new styles. I'm going to be, doing new things with my hair. I want to take care of it. So this partnership, long-term partnership with me and Shea Moisture, it makes complete sense.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. And Aisha, I love that you shared that you, I mean, even if, the money flew away, right? You were authentic to yourself and you were like, this is just not going to work for me or my audience. And I think a lot of times influencers who are so focused on selling, they're like, no, I can't cut this off. Like, I have to get the money. I have to sell to my audience. And you were like, my audience don't even want to see this for longer than a month. So like, I think that is so genuine and authentic. And I just wanted to express that. I think that's great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
I definitely agree. I also love that you said, I had to bow out and I had to do what was best for me and myself. In the future, as like someone who works on the brand side and who works for an agency, in the future, I'm gonna think of that and be like, she didn't just quit. She didn't just stop just because there was nothing there. It was, okay, this is how we need to tweak our plans going forward, making sure that there are campaigns actually rolling out before we bring on someone long-term. And, I'm more apt to want to work with you because it's like, okay, she did what was best for her, but also it's not to the detriment of us and our end of goal, to push out products. So kudos to you. And I think everyone should take note of that. I have a couple more questions, but I wanted to remind folks that are watching us at home to make sure that you're dropping questions in the chat. We would love to ask whatever's pressing on your mind to Aisha and Bree. And so if you have any questions, make sure that you're dropping them below. So pivoting a little bit to us being women and women of color. I know that there's a few brands out there that have gotten some backlash over the years for not prioritizing us as creators. So, but I would love to know from your point of view, what brands can do to really foster those authentic and open relationships and long-term relationships with people of color and women especially. So whoever wants to take that, it's all yours.
I'll let you take it, Bree. And then I'll come in after.
I think it starts with seeing Black women specifically, I'll speak for myself, as more than just a number. I think a lot of brands get caught up in these DEI metrics that from their perspective doesn't even exist. So I think they get so caught up in that we just become a number. And I think, we're seeing with Aisha getting this long-term partnership with Shea Moisture. To me, that that is because Shea Moisture wants to foster a relationship with Aisha and her followers and community. I think brands, because they see it as, okay, we have to make sure we work with 5 Black women creators this month. So let's make sure that we're getting them in. That takes away from the authenticity that's connected to your brand and whatever products or items that you are trying to promote. For me, the main thing is brands seeing us as more than just a number and seeing us as human beings, not human doings who are just there to create content for their brand. And that helps us do a better job of fostering community around whatever it is that we're promoting for that particular brand.
Oh, you just dropped so many gems. I'm going to take human beings versus human doings with me for a very long time. I love that you said that.
Yeah, we are not machines just out here to create content. We are content creators. This is something we've chosen to do. But when you don't see us as humans first, it takes the fun out of me doing what I love to do. And you can tell that. You can tell when somebody is treating you as just a number. I went to a PWI, so I know for sure when people are treating me like a number.
I love my PWI.
I do too. I do too.
You said not too much on the PWI.
But I know. I can see it. We see each other.
We see each other. We sure do. We sure do.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, that's so real. It definitely, you can definitely sniff it out. And I went to an HBCU, but I worked in, predominantly white spaces upon graduation, and my high school experience was that. So I agree, and I can see it, and I can also see when I'm being tokenized and I'm the only, and I'm just there to fulfill a quota. And I think an easy way to spot that out is making sure that you take a look at the brand's page as well, because there was a few years ago, again, when I needed some money, a brand reached out and they wanted me to showcase their hair products. And so I was like, all right, I'm particular about my hair, so let me look at their page. I was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and I did not see anyone who looked like me. Not my complexion, not my hair texture, nothing. Not, no features that resembled mine. So I was like, they darn sure do not represent my audience. So how am I going to showcase your brand to my audience? So I think what's important is the brand needs to do the due diligence before they reach out to influencers of color. Make sure that you are already creating campaigns internally that represent us and don't rely on us to now be your diversity after the fact, when we were an afterthought. And now you've come to realize that the buying power is so strong and that our audience is so loyal that we're of value. I think it's super important to make those observations internally before you even think about approaching a Black content creator. I think that's step one. And then I also feel it's important to understand their point of view. Our point of view and our voice is going to be unique. It's going to be a little bit more detailed. It's going to be, we're going to really incorporate it into our lives and do less selling. I think I've noticed a difference on a few spectrums regarding Black creators, and how we create is a little bit different than the rest of the creator community, which I think is also a value, because we're really trying not to be salesy. And trying to really hone in on it. But I think that is really important. And I also feel that it's important that brands, I had a thought and then I lost it, but it was good. It was good. But
I already know it's about to be good.
Yeah, but that's it. That's it for now. That's all I have.
I think to piggyback off of something you said, I can't imagine it because it's happened before. My audience seeing me post something from a brand and then going to their page and only seeing my Black face up there and not seeing any other people of color up there, and they come back to me, they're like, girl, so does this really work? Because at that point it becomes, so you just took on this brand partnership to get the money. Because if I go up there and there's no one else that looks like me or you, that means that this is not going to work for me. So that means that now I am disrupting the level of trust that I've established with my audience because you didn't do your due diligence internally, like Aisha said. And now I'm a token. And now
Right.
my followers are looking at me like I'm crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think to all of y'all's point, as much as you are about as brands are evaluating you, you also have to evaluate them too. So like
Yes.
bottom line is just checking the facts, checking to make sure that you aren't tokenized. And I think that's something that, you know, we've experienced on a day to day. So we shouldn't want to experience it when we're working in partnership with a brand or, you know, a company to accomplish a goal for both of us. It's a mutually exclusive deal that we have going on. So
I do. Okay, I remember now.
you remember? Okay, great. Yes, we love it.
So I'm gonna try to make it sweet, quick and short and sweet. So basically, when it comes to working with black or people of color creators, I think it's really important not to. I feel sometimes they try to hold us to a much higher standard and make the criteria so much higher for us to enter a
I'm
space.
triggered.
Yeah.
Yes, which and I'm saying this because I've spoken to a colleague who or a friend who is in PR, and the the strings she's had to pull to
Yes.
get black creators in a campaign or at an event, she's felt really uncomfortable having to fight so hard to get those creators there and prove their worth. And that's something across the board. If you're a black creator, you must have 100,000 followers
Yes.
and a 10% engagement rate and this many like 100,000 click-throughs every time you post
Talk about it.
XYZ.
Yeah.
There's so much criteria that we have to meet just to get in the room. Whereas there are other creators, non-black creators who, if they enjoy their content, they like their personality, they enjoy their feed, it's a no-brainer as to why they're a fit and why their brand coincides with our brand. And, we're under such a microscope, and I think that is what's really, really unfair. And I think it's important, for brands to listen to their their people of color employees and and keep their feedback their feedback in mind as well when making these decisions, because maybe they don't understand the way that we're speaking to our audience, and they don't understand the way that we are showcasing certain things. So it's good to refer to somebody who does understand and does get it and is able to equip them with the knowledge of why it makes sense for us to work with them.
Absolutely. The girls that get it, and the girls that don't, they don't, and it's very obvious.
Yeah.
Fortunately, at Precise, we work with really great clients that value, and I don't say oh yeah, we need Black people. They value the creators that we provide them, and they take heed to our counsel, and they know that we know multicultural creators and multicultural PR from top to bottom, so they trust us. And we've been fortunate to work with clients who are of color or who are advocates in their own right. And so the work that we're doing is just a great reflection of their brand, and then two, our work of okay, we're only putting our best foot forward with these best creators. And guess what? They are Black. Not they happen to be Black, but they are Black. And you just gonna have to run with that. So
yeah,
I love that you have provided that advocacy. So I know we have a few more minutes left. I wanted to take some questions from the chat. Our first question comes from Alexis Davis Smith. Do you all say no to brands that don't have a track record of reaching out to multicultural consumers?
So I will be honest and say that when I first started out back in 2018, when I needed the money, I was more likely to say yes. But here in the Lord's year of 2024, it's just not going to work for me. It's literally just not going to work for me. So I have gotten very comfortable in my no to brands and recognizing that my first responsibility is to be authentic and true to myself. And that means that if I can't even see myself on a brand's page or on their website or anything like that, then it's just not a brand that I genuinely want to connect with. So yes, I say no to brands that don't have that track record already.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely do the same. And I agree, Brie. Like I wasn't always this way. Sometimes, you know, you got to go where the money reside and you got to get to the
Okay.
point and you know, you have bills to pay and
Hmm.
a livelihood to maintain. So it can be hard and difficult. And I think you know, if I'm being real and honest, there are times where you do have to you have to weigh it. Okay, we may not be represented here, but is this an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
where
Sure.
I can come in and and I like it so much and I'm so interested in this product service, you know,
Mm-hmm.
offering that I think it would behoove me to showcase it to my audience
Absolutely.
Yep.
despite it. And that's not to say that I'm like, you know, trying to sell out and do something that, you know, and work
Mm-mm.
with a brand that doesn't care about us. But also as an influencer, you do have the responsibility to open your audience's eyes to new things
For
and show
sure.
new opportunities to them. So so there have been some opportunities where I haven't seen anyone like me, you know, doing it, wearing it, using it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it would be something that could be beneficial for us. And so I
Hmm.
have moved forward. But if it's something glaring and something where I feel truly like a hair product where I feel like this is kind of insane, then I'll say no for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. All right,
Mhm.
next question. We kind of talked about this already, but take us through the process of you taking that leap of faith and becoming a full-time creator.
You can go.
Okay. So I will start in 2021. So this is when I made the decision to quit my full-time job in social work and start my business, which my full-time is the Social Hive. So that is where I do full service social media management for other brands and businesses. And then my part-time full-time is me being a content creator and building my personal brand. And so the leap of faith looked like me sitting in my prayer closet and asking God if he was sure this is what he wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had been applying to jobs. All I knew was that level of stability that comes with working in a corporate or nonprofit space, which is what I was familiar with. And so it felt like I was losing a sense of security. And so my process genuinely required me to really sit with God and figure out if this was something he wanted me to pursue full time.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so many signs as far as that, as far as his answer being, yes, let's do it. And so I did it. And it wasn't an easy leap, but it was absolutely a leap worth taking.
Love that.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's and I like that you know touch on sitting with yourself and you know really figuring out if this was for you and
Hmm.
following those signs because I think a lot of us don't follow the signs
Yeah.
and we push against that instead of just riding the wave. So kudos to you
Thank you.
and congratulations. Look at you speaking
Thank you.
opportunity. Amazing.
Glowing.
I know. Thank you
Yes.
so
Yes.
much.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. My journey, I'm gonna try to sum it up in 1 or 2 minutes. Y'all know I'm long-winded.
I know, like,
I love
come
it.
on, sis.
I'm a,
The girl gives details.
I know, and we need them, and we need
yes. Okay. So I worked in fashion as a fashion publicist for many, many years, but I did have a blog. I started with my blog and my Instagram in 2016. And then I went full time in 2018. I actually had a panic attack in my work
Mm,
office with like I just was unhappy. The situation wasn't working for me. And I remember like calling my now husband and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to quit. And he was like, just quit. And he's the most risk adverse person you will ever meet. Like that is not something he would ever say in his life. So I was like, oh, this is definitely the side to go.
mhm,
yeah, yeah.
mhm,
And so I decided to embark on this journey and it was hard. I did a lot of like freelance writing. I thought I wanted to be a model, failed at that. I took acting classes, failed at that. I then started doing voiceovers for a meditation app and writing those meditations as well and just
mm,
finding different ways to make money, you know,
mhm,
in this process before I got these brand deals because it took some time for me. And it was about 2 years. I in 2020 the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, where I still wasn't making any money. This was like almost 2 years doing this. And I was like, okay, I'm either going to go back to a full-time career as a publicist, or I'm going to figure out something else. And I decided to humble myself and go work at a restaurant. Mind you, this is somebody who I've worked hard, went to an HBCU, graduated, did well, got a job out of college, became the director of communications for a luxury brand, did all of that. And I decided I'm going to work at a restaurant because I see something. I know that this is going to take off, and I trust myself and believe in myself enough to keep making it work. Yeah. And I think a lot of people feel like you come into this, you become viral, you get rich. No, it takes time. It takes a lot of building. So worked at the restaurant, lost the restaurant job because of COVID, then decided to continue on that journey. Worked really, really hard to just put my name out there and keep producing content. And then eventually brands started to see my work. And I will say it honestly took about like 2.5 years for me to start seeing consistent income and consistent brand deals and opportunities. And now things have just continued to go very, very well. And I'm really, really grateful of the trajectory and everything else that's come from it.
That's really inspiring. I think people see any creator really that is getting brand deals, but especially those who have a hefty amount of followers, and you automatically assume that that person got it overnight, or that they went viral and then all of the money just started flooding in, especially now in the age of TikTok, where that is something that's happening. And so I think it's so important for these sorts of conversations to happen, and for people to actually hear from creators like us, like, that is not what my story was. You worked at a restaurant. I did Uber Eats for a little bit when I became a full-time entrepreneur. And it's like people see the highlight reel, and that's why I really think it's important for people to show their authentic selves, because it's not always sweet. So I thank you for sharing that, Aisha.
Yeah, I love that. I feel inspired, motivated. I need things to do. I'm feeling it. I can talk to y'all all day long. Y'all know this. But I have twofold question. One, what's the one way that you failed forward as an influencer? So it was failing, and you ended up in the very positive outcome that you least expected. And then two, I want you to close out with highlighting some of your favorite creators or creator that you want to like give some kudos to, like people should be following. So Aisha, you go first, and then we'll go to Brie.
Okay. I think failing forward, I think that more so is just like trying everything and just like doing it. I think when I first became an entrepreneur, I was listening to different podcasts, like entrepreneurial podcasts, because this was at the time where being a creator wasn't really a thing yet. So I was just listening to regular entrepreneurial podcasts. And one of the things that always stuck with me was when somebody mentioned that when you're launching, just launch the MVP, the most I guess viable product. Like what's good enough to be put out. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be fully actualized yet. And I think once I gave up trying to make my content super, perfect and put together and everything, that's when I just started producing and seeing, okay, this works, this doesn't work. I like this lighting. I don't like this lighting. I like the way I told this story. So, and there were many situations where I didn't get engagement. No one was paying attention. No one cared, but I continued to go. And, as a creator, you feel like you failed when you don't have, views and likes and comments. Yeah. And there were many times where I was just throwing stuff out there and it was crickets, until one day people started listening, started paying attention, and I found my footing. And that, was a testament to that. And I would love to give a shout out to one of my dear, dear, dear friends, Jessica Lindsay, and her handle on Instagram is at It's Jessica Lindsay. And she is a phenomenal creator. She's someone else who is a micro influencer, because again, it's not the 100K, but she is actually a trained like videographer. So she went to school for filmmaking. And so although she's shooting lifestyle content and, you know, traditional content in her home, it is always so cinematically shot, beautifully done. She tells a story in her captions and sometimes with her on-screen text. She is truly the epitome of like a creator's creator, because there's just so much work that gets put into it. Yeah.
Love Jessica.
Mhm.
One way that I have failed forward. So all last year, I dealt so much with this comparison thing. It was almost crippling to the point where before I posted anything, I would go and check another creator's page to see how they did it and see if I was like in alignment with the trends that were going on. And I just remember one day I was about to go look, and I literally felt the Lord be like, don't you go look at that page again. Don't you do it. And so in being obedient to not doing that, I have been able to tap into a level of creativity that I did not have all of last year. I have like ideas for series that are unique and authentic to me that I can do. That the first one I put out, like my audience is really connecting with it. And I'm like, okay, so I need to make sure that before I am keeping up with anybody's trend or anything like that, that I am creating content that is fun for me and that my audience is going to connect with. So that is one way that I failed forward. I have two creators because I tried while Aisha was talking, I tried to narrow it down to one, but I couldn't. Delolo, Daria, she is absolutely amazing. One of my style faves. Love to see her put together outfits. Love when she shows up on stories as her authentic self. I really appreciate that. And then Devonna Turner, that girl is one of the funniest creators I know. And she puts on for the mid-sized girlies, and I just really appreciate that both of them showing up as their authentic selves.
Well, thank you both for such an amazing conversation. This was the most fun I think I've ever had talking to people. Also, I'm like, y'all, we know each other. So, like, yes, we're here already. But I am so thankful that you both agreed to join us for Culture and Convos and, you know, provide some gems and really get people to understand the ins and outs of influencers and working with brands. So thank you so much for your time. Your handles are posted and live, so make sure to follow each of these ladies on their social channels. Give them a like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is you got to do. And you'll be sure to see them, I'm sure, working on plenty of fun stuff. So if there are any questions, make sure you send your questions to Precise Communications at PreciseCom ATL. And we'll be sure to pass these along. And hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yes, please. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.